This is a unique breakout. I like these sessions because not many of these deal with the day-to-day operator. A lot of it's about your distribution channels and your throughput and your brand growth, but this is truly about scaling a business actually within the four walls that ShipBob does not own and operate. So obviously about 3/4 of our customers are fulfilling with our global warehouses, but these amazing brands have made the decision from inception as they grow to actually self-fulfill, but take advantage of our transportation ecosystem and our technology to empower their self-fulfillment strategy. A lot of what they have to do is what we do across a team of 1,000 people, and we have the benefits of learning and scaling and building what they're doing it within their own four walls. So a lot of what we want to talk about today is scaling businesses. How do you make the decision to self-fulfill? When you do self-fulfill and take advantage of technology, when are you making that investment to do that next best commercial outlet, the next marketplace, the next hire? You know, again, we have a very large talent pool. They're very specific of who makes their brand, who emulates their brand strategy. So that's going to be the topic of today. Chris Kuchar, I run our go-to-market for North America. Been at ShipBob for 2 years, and I'm thrilled to introduce the panel. So Jeff, why don't you start and tell a bit about you, your brand, and what you do?
Hi, I'm Jeff Clark, the Director of Operations at Bespoke Beauty Brands. We have 2 major lines, Kim Shi and Jason Wu. We just implemented ShipBob last year in June, so very glad to be here and kind of share our journey and how we got here.
Cool. I'm Brian. I'm the General Manager of SMLXL based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And we help out a myriad of artists and entertainment brands with their fulfillment and e-commerce. And we've been with ShipBob for a little over a year. I believe we implemented at the end of February, early March of last year. And it's been a great journey. It's been super helpful and excited to continue to grow with them as partners.
I'm Catherine Watercutter. I'm out of Indianapolis, and I'm the founder of Hinge. We are a women's athleisure brand, and we've been using ShipBob for a little over 3 years now, the WMS system, and yeah, excited to be here.
Great. Well, nice to meet you all. I think let's jump into a bit of the growth story and when you determined to make that investment. Because a lot of people, you know, you saw the ShipBob story with Drew and DeVay at USPS with boxes, and they decided to help fulfill 4 merchants that are really small and started to grow. But you all may have taken different avenues to, we have to own it, we want to feel it, see it, invest in it ourselves. So maybe Brian, I'll start with you because you have talking about your brand a little bit. You're working with hundreds of different labels and vinyl and apparel. So talk about when you do it, is it quality control? Is it the brands that dictate how you have to operate and you're holding a high standard? So talk about your fulfillment strategy within your 4 walls.
Yeah, I mean, I think by and large the same standards that you all expect, trying to get orders out as soon as possible. Like all of those things are continually maintained, but in our business, there's a lot of pre-orders. A lot of people are not interested in keeping stock at our facility, and so there's a lot of different fulfillment strategies that we need to implement and have a really versatile back end that will account for that. And so, and each brand is very different. I mean, we have, like Chris said, somewhere between 170 and 200 merchants, all ranging from developmental bands to smaller brands. Schools, all the way up to major touring artists like Megan Thee Stallion and Wiz Khalifa. And so each different brand has their varying needs and nuances, and so we have to be really versatile to be able to fit all of those needs. And you know, we don't always succeed because that's part of the entertainment business. We're constantly growing and learning with folks, and so the flexibility that we have with ShipBob aligns with our ethos in a way that allows us to be able to grow with our fulfillment strategies.
And Jeff, on that note, you've had a brand that's been around for a little bit of time now. So when you joined the operating team, was the facility already there? Was any technology in place? Was it more bootstrapped? What would you walk into?
Yeah, so when I stepped in, we were strictly on Shopify and all paper, very difficult, a little cumbersome, a lot of manual processes in that. I can tell you that I can pinpoint the exact day of when we knew we needed something more, and that was about 2 years ago during Black Friday when we had some sales, and they just went bonkers. And we were looking at over 10,000 orders a day, and it was incredible. And we actually had to work weekends and holidays just because we were trying to keep ahead and not miss out on the SLAs. So even though we had planned, even though we had the staff, even though we had everything in place, it was just such a struggle to keep up with that volume. So we actually went from about 10,000 orders per month to 100,000 orders per, over 100,000 orders per month during November, December, and January. And that was just an incredible feat for us to get through. And then once the waters receded and the air is cleared, we said, we got to do something different. I think that's the time when it really sold the entire company and all of the people involved that we need to do something better because it costs too much. There's just too much cost involved in that much labor, overtime, and then people giving up their holidays and their own personal time, which is important to me to make sure that my staff has that good life balance. I don't want them to, regret coming to work. We want to make sure that we have something that's a lot more easier than what we had just went through. It was a definite milestone for us, and that's what made the catalyst for that decision to go with something else.
And before I go to Kat, I wanted to, how much was intangible versus tangible for you to make that swap? Because to your point, you can't put a price tag on employee sentiment and working 7 days a week and working overtime, but you know that it was necessary to support the business. Mm-hmm. When you go to your CFO and you go to the brand owners, is it hey, we overtime was this, surcharge was that, late fees are this, or was it we can't scale, we missed SLAs, my employees are unhappy? What was the balance you had to go through?
We missed no SLAs. I mean, the team was committed. We made sure that was going to happen. It was just a matter of, we're going to get through it, but we're not doing this again. So there was cost. There was the cost of overtime. I did have the analysis and all that, but it wasn't like we lost money, but our margins suffered. That's where we really drew the line and said we could have made a lot more money because we had to suffer through all of this.
And on the volatility, Kat, your brand is a prime example of word of mouth, social following, and all of a sudden overnight, millions and millions and millions and millions. So did you have a similar inflection point when you care so much? I mean, I talked to you for hours, like you care so much about your brand, but also quality control and making sure people get your product. So talk about the volatility of your brand in a good way and how you've managed that quality control.
Yeah, so I'm going to be a little bit casual and honest here. I think why we have good quality control now, and we're able to really work as a team and show our behind the scenes and process of growing our brand. But I think early on it was doing whatever it took to get our product out there. And so they had also mentioned pre-orders and things like that. I mean, there was a point where my employees sitting in the front row here, we were quite literally selling product that was arriving the next day. And so we didn't have the ability to really plan ahead, and we were able to scale because we were willing to do whatever it took. And so that was a sense of control a little bit. So yeah.
Okay. So now all three of you have, again, our WMS, 10 years of investment, hundreds of engineers behind the scenes. You heard Ro earlier, the deployment cycle and how much we're building. Talk to me about, and again, maybe we'll start with Brian actually. Talk to me about how you've helped train and optimize a team on one thing. One, how to use the technology efficiently. But two, I want to dovetail after this into some of the KPIs that you're reporting against for labor productivity, throughput. Are we optimizing our supply chain to be the best? So maybe talk about, first of all, how was the adoption of the technology going from something to something heavily invested in? Was it, yes, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah. So prior to ShipBob, we were fulfilling all through ShipStation, which, served the purpose, and we still have it as a fail-safe in case we need to, do anything nuanced within our fulfillment process. Transparently, we're still onboarding all of our clients into ShipBob. It does take a decent bit of time, especially for some of our clients that have, a good bit of SKUs to get everything over. In tandem, we've also dealt with moving warehouses in the last year while we've been onboarding. So there's been a lot of moving pieces that we've all been trying to coordinate and get behind. But I think our biggest sense of comfort came when, we started to see how the warehouse being mapped within the ShipBob ecosystem was directly impacting our inventory control for the accounts that we did have within the ShipBob ecosystem versus the ShipStation ecosystem. And We have a small but mighty team, and a lot of people on the team, some of them here today, really got behind the ops of learning ShipBob and really becoming experts as quickly as possible. We're still learning throughout the process. Like, you guys are changing things and updating things to try and meet our needs as much as possible while we continue to grow. So, the learning curve is still there. I do think that, over the next couple of months, our goal is to try and get everybody into the ShipBob ecosystem so that we can really track those labor costs and some of those pick, pack, and ship costs a little bit more scrupulously. And it has forced the differentiation between ShipStation and ShipBob. It has forced us to look a little bit at our business model and think, okay, what are some ways in which we can change and optimize what we're doing to make sure that we do have a good balanced quality of life with our employees, but also at the same time are meeting the needs of our very highly demanding artists. Artists are not the easiest folks to work with. They want everything. I think ASAP is the most common timeline we're given. So, if we can, meet those needs while also giving our employees a really happy, life, that's really our goal in this. And there's no one-size-fits-all model for what we're doing, and that's our mission statement. Merch for all sizes. So why would fulfillment be any different?
So before inventory controls, that you mentioned that halfway through, but one of the KPIs you focus on, what was not well maintained for, and what are the benefits you've seen because of better inventory dashboard management from that?
Yeah, I mean, we get into circumstances with ShipStation sometimes where we print a label. We're in a pre-order process where we don't have the product necessarily right, when we need it to ship out. And in some of those cases with ShipStation, those labels would be printed, but maybe those products wouldn't come in until quite a bit later. And so there was a disconnect between where are those products, where are those labels, and when are we able to get those out in a good amount of time, and how is that inventory being allocated? Are we manually adjusting, which is crazy, and we can't be doing that. But that was, in some cases, how we were managing it within the last several years. So then come along ShipBob, we have everything mapped. There's a process with scanning in and out product so that adjustments are made, and we're not losing out on potential orders that have had labels associated with them that we then have to go in and cancel and refund.
Wow. So pivoting to UK, we talked about you had a hero SKU that was the lion's share of your revenue to start the business, and then all of a sudden you had to get wider and wider and wider and try to do more cross-sell with your loyal customer base. So as you grew your brand and grew your business and got a more mature WMS, like, what was the evolution of that internally? How was the team receiving that, and how did the adoption go?
Yeah, so we actually did use ShipStation as well, and getting to the product shift, which has been somewhat of a slow process over the past couple years. I think just one thing that really allowed us to become more efficient was, we used ShipStation. We would have to manually print everything, even if you were doing it in batches, and the amount of time it took my staff to then separate everything. And, I had one or two employees that I could trust to really care about packing the orders correctly and whatnot. I know the onboarding process takes a little bit of time, but it really allowed me to take a step back because we were growing across a couple years over 100% year over year, and that kind of scale was very difficult to grow my team and processes, and it allowed me to take a step back and focus on exploring other products and really pushing our customer in the direction we wanted. So we, had that hero winning product that allowed us to take off, and then from there, we've seen even our processes with ShipBob evolve, where we're not just doing a bunch of batch orders, but we need to scale our team. And even though the onboarding process might take a little bit of time, I'm able to just go out and hire people and hold them to standards. There's a two-step checking process where I feel like I have more control, and really that contributes to the growth of the brand, being able to hire in other areas because that your warehouse team and your fulfillment system's all taken care of.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know in this market, a lot of WMSs, it's self-deploy, self-train, self-install. We at least, we helped you, but also your business model's evolved. So we talked last night about, should we re-optimize how we're laying out our facility? So going back to you real quick before we go to Jeff. So when you think about your growth, and again, it's the benefits of like a ShipBob is that we're nimble, we can constantly move everything around, but you all, again, you are doing it in the control of your four walls. So what's the next inflection point for you where you say, I need to make sure we're optimizing our team we have in place versus optimizing the technology we have? Because again, one's supporting the business, one's supporting the technology. How do you weigh that balance of making the tech work for you versus evolving the business saying, hey, we have to change what we're doing and make the tech keep up?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I don't know.
That's okay.
I'm not.
Maybe you're not
I
there
think
yet where you have that
we're
inflection.
taking it day by day. I think Chris asked me some hard questions yesterday, and he was like, "How do you prepare for tomorrow?" And I'm like, really, you know, I brought up a good example of, you know, we had a couple hundred orders consistently, and then we had something go viral on TikTok, and all of a sudden, for a month straight, we were getting a couple thousand orders a day, and we had to immediately scale, and ShipBob allowed us to help do that. And so right now what we're dealing with, and business is just solving problems every day. What we're dealing with is we went from having a product that we were mainly selling in multiple colors to now we've pushed our customer in the direction of like where we want to take our brand. And early on, that selling that product a lot, you know, gave us the cash flow we wanted in the growth to allow us to do what we're doing now. But we're in limited space, and we are using ShipBob to the best of our abilities, but we're having to step a little bit away from the efficiency of how your warehouse is snaked out so that you can go through and the pickers can pack everything or pick it most efficiently. And so I think that's something that my team and I actually were talking about yesterday and still working through, and we were giving some feedback to Chris. So I think that's kind of a work in progress. We may need to look into more racking and strategically plan. But again, I think the software allows us to have less time and labor spent into all the manual stuff.
Sounds like you have thought it through. Well said. Jeff, in your world, you talked about how revolutionary it was to actually get like a common system and technology in place for your operators, but you know the training is taking some time as well. So talk about once it was put in place, you probably had the like deep breath moment where we did it, we invested in it, we're going to see the benefits, but you obviously are maintaining. Are we keeping up? Are we actually meeting the success that I promised my team? So talk about the deployment in initial first few months.
Yeah, so we had some struggles. Obviously, every implementation has some struggles. Ours was mainly we had so many different. We have limited SKUs, but many lots. And prior to being able to identify those lots and pick them accordingly, like in a FIFO, it was kind of chaotic. You had to have somebody going around looking for that specific lot. So the biggest contribution that the ShipBob has given to us was to identify those SKUs and lots and send them directly to that location. The problem was, because we were so far behind as far as we had such a mess on our hands, one SKU could have been having 10 different lots. So that meant we couldn't have the one SKU in one location, one lot. We had the one SKU, 10 locations, 10 different lots in some cases, not every one of them. So that was kind of a struggle for us, because our locations were basically, we would take the newer stuff, pile the old stuff on top of that, put it in the same location. We couldn't do that anymore. So there was a few different ideas that we went through. It took us months to finally get that all fixed and separated so that it was more efficient than what it was. But you're asking me about the aha moment, about when we kind of took a breath. It was probably the following year on that Black Friday where, and I shared this with Martin, our rep, it was just amazing. Everybody went home on time. In fact, it was one of those moments where everybody was feeling guilty. They didn't want to go. They were like, "Are you sure? Are we really caught up? I don't believe this. Check it again. Check the system. Is there more? There's got to be more orders." No, we've gone through them. Our prior record for number of orders out the door in one day, which was 2 long shifts, 2 10-hour shifts, was 6,500 orders. Well, we handled like 12,000 that day in one 8-hour shift plus a couple of hours with some people just stuck around to take care of it. And again, it was like, are you sure we can go home? And you know, that was the time that we realized that we made the right decision. And we got everything in place. It's running as it should. Took us a little while, but we got it.
That's amazing. I mean, the common thread across all three of you is supporting your team, making sure they're coming to work every day, motivated to support the brand, and obviously doing right by the client. So, and you know, technology is an enabler, but at the end of the day, it's human capital that's supporting these businesses. So I want to pivot while we have a little bit of time before we go to what's next. Is you all are on the forefront of what's next for my brand, what marketplace, what throughput. And again, we talked earlier, Brian, you'll be beholden to the mercy of where your clients might want to go. But Jeff, is it, so I guess snaking back, when you look at, you know, if your founder, CEO come to you and says, hey, we're going to be coming down to Target, we're going to be doubling down on Amazon, like, how are they communicating to you about where your product's going to be going, and how much lead time do you need to make sure that you're optimized to fulfill those next marketplaces?
Yeah, so we're doing that now. I mean, we just took on a couple of other clients. We're going back into TJ Maxx right now. They've been kind of stale on us, but some of these other companies that are now coming back up and increasing their volume, it's just a matter of saying, you know, how much more volume are we looking at? I mean, give us a forecast, and we're able to scale that, no problem. As far as the e-com side, it's so easy for us now because we don't have the paper, we don't have the lengthy processes. It's literally just setting up a station and multiplying those stations. I can have 5 stations, but I'm only running 2. So tomorrow, I come in, I find out we've got 10,000 orders. We don't sweat it. We just turn on those stations. We've got the people to run that, and then it just flows. So as far as scalability and handling that volume, I think that we are way over, to be able to deliver way over what they could tell us that is coming in right now. So it's a very good place for us to sit.
Brian, in your world, how much can you do what Jeff alluded to, where customize at scale? I mean, the tech obviously is in theory, an unlimited throughput. If you want 20,000 orders, you can do 20,000 orders. But how are you all optimizing that next marketplace while using like our backend, for example?
Yeah, again, to your point, we are at the mercy of our clients pretty heavily. And so depending on what new music rollout or new tour is coming up, and the sometimes wacky ideas that the artists bring to the table or the label teams bring to us, we have to sort of fit in and find the puzzle piece that works. And so we do rely on, a lot of partner expertise to get us there. And simultaneously, it's, we got to know exactly who we are as a company. We're not a digital marketing agency. We're not going to necessarily be the experts in the room for TikTok, but there's plenty of folks at this conference alone that are. And so it's getting out there and talking to folks that are experts in these various places that can help us achieve what we need to for our clients, that makes the biggest difference, especially being that we are, again, we're not, a massive company. We don't have a ton of employees, but we're working at a scale of a massive company. And so that, ShipBob allows us to do that. I think we're also dealing with, while we're at the mercy of our clients, we're also a brand ourselves. So we're simultaneously trying to utilize some of the scalable practices, whether it's utilizing TikTok Shop or trying to use various upsell funnels through Shopify that integrate with a flow into ShipBob. We have one company that has built their own e-commerce platform, and so ShipBob has allowed us to be able to serve them through some API webhooks that wouldn't have been possible with ShipStation. So heavily nuanced. I think the future for us, we need to sort of analyze who is really making our lives easy and allowing us to continue to scale our company, and who is a little bit of dead weight and has dead stock that got to go. Yeah. And so those are some tough conversations and decisions that we're going to be confronted with here soon. But I think ultimately those are the conversations and decisions that get us across this next hump and into a really scalable next chapter for SMLXL. You
mentioned you're a brand in itself. Is there anything that you're holding yourself accountable to from a warehouse management throughput standpoint? Are there certain KPIs like weekly? And one of the themes of every meeting is, what are you waking up to every morning across those big sessions and looking at? Is there any major metric you're looking at on a daily or weekly basis powered by our back end?
Yeah, I mean, every morning I wake up and I go through the Powered by Exceptions board, because a lot of what we do, again, is pre-order based. New campaigns, we're not going to get the items for, maybe 2 weeks or a month down the line, making sure that the orders that come in are first in, first out, and, doing right by the customer. And so looking at that board, but our group that constantly meets on exceptions weekly, we constantly are going through and making sure that within the queue of pre-orders that we have, which is plentiful, that we're not missing any of the ones that are exceptions that are just out of stock, or there's a issue with some of the metadata within the product in the back end that we can easily fix with packaging preferences or HS codes. And so I'm constantly making sure that we are able to get the orders out that aren't being held up by a pre-order scenario, so that our SLA times aren't affected and we walk away with happy customers and a lower customer service queue.
Couple really good metrics, so both on the pre and post side of measurement there. Jeff, in your operating world, similar question. Are you daily, monthly, weekly looking at KPIs report back to the business on the return on investment or just general scale of the business that you've been able to report on?
Yeah, definitely every day, every week, and every month. So we do keep track of all that. The one thing I do pay attention to mostly on the KPIs is picking and packing in sync. And what I mean by that is, if you've got a picker that's not keeping up with your packer, then it's out of sync. Your throughput is off. So you've got to make sure that there's a match. Maybe it takes 2 pickers to 1 packer, or maybe it depends on the environment. But you've really got to pay attention to each one of those lanes and find out what those time studies are and match them accordingly. That's when you really start to see the output. If you've got somebody waiting on somebody, they're not going to tell them hurry up. You can't push it through. You got to pull it through. So if the packer is down, that's a problem. So when we're measuring obviously order fulfillment, making sure that we're accurate, making sure we're on time, and then the inventory, that's the biggest thing. If the inventory isn't there in the right place at the right time, then you're busted. You've just lost.
So Kat, I could bring that first question back to you as a business owner. You're looking at marketplaces, new partnerships. You have to make sure your team's ready to back up that scale. So talk to us about when you go take that next big leap into a new channel, like you talked about dealers and other B2B outlets, like what are you getting the team ready for internally? And then how are you measuring back on the success of that campaign, for example?
So I had, Jeff said it perfectly. I think it's because of ShipBob and the processes that we feel confident that, if a new B2B customer comes to us tomorrow, we feel like we can fulfill it pretty easily. We separate out those POs, and when they come in, the old us would process it right away, and we're wanting to do that now, but we find ourselves wanting to fall back on our ShipBob's system just to count on that accuracy and making sure those orders are correct so we don't get chargebacks and whatnot. So I really feel confident that it's a situation where we feel like we can take on whatever. We're just really clear on our forecasting. We break down everything. We are tracking KPIs on a daily, weekly, monthly basis as well. And it's those metrics through ShipBob that we can pull those through, and that's the data that we need to then plan, and we feel confident we can scale, take on any opportunity, really.
Yeah, amazing. So, last round here of questions. I want to talk about what you all are doing at the brand level that might get everyone excited to hear from a brand growth or distribution or fulfillment strategy, but also looking at maybe investing in some technology. You heard a lot of great ideas about our MCP coming out, and we've had customers potentially querying our MCP to do exception management, get real-time reports on accuracy and throughput and other things. So, and maybe we're not investing in AI yet. We're not ready as a brand. We like quality control. We like our size. What works, but we're thinking about. So I'd love if each of you can end with maybe where the brand's going in the next 12 months, and also are you investing in any next best tech to support our WMS +1? So Jeff, why don't you start?
Well, yeah, obviously we're constantly going after new growth, and we have a good sales team that's going after that. We've got a great marketing team that's stepped up a lot. So we are anticipating a lot more growth. We have to be prepared for that. I really had some interesting well, the talks today about the AI really kind of perked me up a little bit. And it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know until you come in and you start to hear about how some of the AI could help you in some of your operations. Because I didn't know that, there were certain areas that it could apply to us until I heard it today. So I think that for me personally, I'm going to start looking a lot more into that and seeing how that can be applied towards our operations, because I think it's the future, and we've got to just get on board with that, and I don't want to be left behind.
Well said. Brian?
Yeah, so maintenance for us, we're wanting to get our entire roster over into ShipBob. That's a big goal for us by the end of August. And then as far as the implementations of new tech, I mean, we're constantly doing that, whether it's because a client, an artist is bringing us an idea that we can't currently fit within our current tech stack, or we're looking for ways to be more efficient and optimize our processes. And AI is doing a really good job of allowing for that specific type of growth. But I think the thing that has made SMLXL what it is, even before I showed up, is a person was on the other end of the phone that they could talk to. And an artist doesn't love being in a support queue and does not love talking to a bot, and wants to know that their vinyl that's being pressed is going to get to the warehouse on time. And so in the context of implementing AI, it's necessary, and we need to utilize it to be more efficient, whether it's hooking part of our ShipBob process with customer service, or our exceptions queue within Power BI. I would love to know about how that's happening with what you guys are doing. But we also can't let that be the end all, that we're not checking, we're not following up on the things that the AI is doing, because AI breaks, and at the end of the day, the person is going to be the one to blame, not the technology, and we have to find solutions for that. So trying to maintain a healthy balance of growing with technology, but also leaning into the stuff that has made SMLXL what it is since the existence, and that's the human touch.
Amazing. Kat, bring us home. Where's the brand going the next 12 months, and where are you looking to invest personally to enhance the technology?
Well, I will say it's hard to go last because they steal some of my answers. They have some great answers. We're always looking for new growth, and I think one thing we're focused on, which ties back into what ShipBob offers us, is we're looking to gain a certain amount of new customers every week, month, year, but I sat back at a conference a few years ago and made me think of this, and he said, if you had to get 100% of your revenue from referrals or existing customers, how would that make you feel? And I think we're trying to balance out that growth of getting our brand in front of new customers, but also nurturing our existing customers, because that can be very powerful for growth, and exploring tools that are constantly coming out in AI. There's even things that are coming out about what their buying patterns, and gaining that data to make sure that we're providing the best service and offering the products that they want. I think that can be easily forgotten about, ignored, and that's very powerful part of the growth. So our focus is just continuing to get in front of new customers, but also balancing that out with growing our existing customers and nurturing them.
Yep. LTV, lifetime value, how many, cart abandonment, multiple orders, how can you start kitting, doing more bundled items together to grow that longevity. So it sounds like you have an amazing growth, all three of you. So thanks, everyone. Wraps up the WMS panel. Appreciate you joining.